And you're in Philly still, right? You guys bought a
Yeah,
house.
going pretty well. We just got a kitchen table. We both bought half a kitchen table for each other for Christmas. So
I
thankfully they were put together already, and
was
it's going
gonna...
well.
You each bought half a kitchen table.
I was gonna say, I
For
like
each other.
I like the idea that you're going to a thrift store and you're each sawing a table in half and bringing it back and being
Yeah.
like,
Like,
"This is what
wow, it
I'm
fits
offering."
perfectly.
From credit scores to retirement accounts, from emergency funds to HSAs, from why you should absolutely use credit cards, and also why you shouldn't, to choosing a brokerage firm based on your favorite color. On this episode of Sips and Clips, we're doing something a little different. No film talk, no cutting-based stories, just hard, cold financial planning. We have my cousin and actuary, Matt McCaron, breaking down the fundamentals of financial health for young freelancers and creative professionals. We get into why your credit score actually matters, the different retirement account options you didn't know you had access to, how health savings accounts can secretly be a wealth building tool for editors, and how to prioritize your savings while navigating the feast or famine cycles of unemployment and debt. It's not the glitz and glamour of Hollywood talk, but your future self will thank you. Welcome to this episode of Sips and Clips. My name is Leanne McFalls.
My name is Michael Schusterman.
We are remote again this time, and we've got a lovely person, dare I say. Matt McCaron is here. He is my cousin, and he is going to talk to us about the most exciting thing you guys have ever heard about, which is finances, everybody.
It's a
Matt,
family show,
Here.
guys.
it's a
Now it's a
family
family
show.
show.
Family show. Matt, you want to say hi?
Hi, everyone. Yeah, great to be here. Excited to talk about a nerdy hobby I love. Good old finance, personal finances.
Well, I was going to start with what we're sipping on. Matt, why don't you start? Because you are our guest. What are you sipping on today?
Sure, I'm sipping on some coffee to make sure I'm wide awake for said podcast that says chill on it. Very exciting. I don't know where Annie got this, but it's a great, Corsical type mug. And water.
Water.
Wow.
Do you drink your coffee black or you
Yes, nothing in it. The cheapest pods you can get online on Amazon, biggest box. We're already getting into finances, saving money.
I was gonna say, spoken like a true actuary already.
Yes, yes.
And I just, it's like the donut ones or whatever. I've got like
Oh,
a
donut
thousand of
shop.
them in
Donut
there.
Donut
shop.
shop coffee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
What about you, Michael? What are you sipping on?
You know what? I have black coffee and water as well,
Wow, I
which
missed the
is
memo.
really.
Incredible.
I'm so sorry. I would have passed it along. Yeah, same thing. Keurig. Although my parents buy like fancy San Francisco Keurig pods. So they're always different and they're always like artisan San Francisco coffee whenever I come home. So it's got the Golden Gate Bridge on it. I couldn't tell you who it is, but I look at the pods and there's a Golden Gate on it. As far as I've gotten.
Then that's when you know it's from San Francisco. I am sporting my casual 3 drinks today. I've got my water. I've got black tea, so not quite black coffee, but I do have black tea boiled in a kettle. All right, people, before you at me. And then I've got my kefir drink as well. These are my kind of typical 3 drinks in the morning. Anyway, we'll get into it. We want to say our huge disclaimer in that Matt is not a financial advisor. This is not quite financial advice, and we encourage you to do your own research. She's just trying to give some insight on what he knows.
And neither are Leanne or I.
We are not financial advisors.
We are not.
no.
We are dumb idiots.
We are far from financial advisors. So, Matt, why don't you introduce yourself? Just want to get a very base of who we're talking to so that people who are listening are not like, who's this weirdo who, like, does he actually know about what he's talking about? Or is he just, like, pulling stuff out of his ass?
Yeah, so Matt McCaron, Leanne's cousin. That's the first thing on the list. Went to school for economics and mathematics at Hamilton College. Have a graduate degree in data science as well, and am an associate of the Society of Actuaries. Pretty much had no idea what I wanted to do when I was in college, but liked math, always liked finance, economics, stuff like that. Kind of tripped into it via, I ran track in college, and 2 of the people on our team, one of their parents were actuaries and the other guy had just gotten interested in it, and they started talking about it. You have to like take these exams and stuff, all about like probabilistic mathematics. It was a good career and everything like that. So I was like, sure, whatever, I'll do that.
Matt was like, that sounds like so much fun. Whoa.
So exciting. Love insurance. But yeah, I've done that my whole professional life. Worked at Cigna for years. That's probably the only company people might recognize, like Cigna Health Insurance. and then worked for a kind of a regional carrier up in the Northeast, and currently actually work for an LA company now on the health provider side called Astrana Health. They're based in like Alhambra. But the whole time, it's basically financial risk analysis. Like what's occurred in the past, what could occur in the future. Let's see best case scenario, worst case scenario, but really look at things from highest probability. We might not be right every time, but as long as we're consistently right most of the time, let's like plan for the highest likely situation or one of the few 3 or 4 likely situations.
You're like a statistical fortune teller.
Basically, yeah.
And how did you fall in love with filmmaking? That's normally the next question we ask.
What got you interested in filmmaking?
Ever since Along Came Polly came out and Ben Stiller was an actuary in that film, I was like, wow, that's gonna be my future.
I want to be that when I grow up.
And you're like, and I had 2 choices. I became an actuary, I became a filmmaker, and in that moment I decided.
I didn't know which path to go down, but when I saw that,
I took away from the movie.
Yes, Matt has always been interested in numbers too at a young age. I just remember when we were at the shore and we were playing mini golf, and my dad did the math to like add up our scores. And Matt, at like the age of 8 or 9, was like, "Actually, that's wrong. Actually, you did this wrong." So Matt's always been good with numbers, and he's helped me a lot with figuring out my financial situation, especially as Michael and I are freelancers and we don't have a company that puts away for retirement and savings, and we kind of only have this pension plan that the union offers, which is great. So Matt's going to talk to us. Bear with us. I know it might be a little boring and heavy, but we're going to try and make this as understandable as possible.
We'll crack a joke once every 6.5 minutes to keep
Yes,
you going.
we'll time it right now and make sure
as possible.
We'll just play a fart noise every 6.5 minutes.
Make sure you guys are still awake. So, Matt, I guess my first question for you, I think that the first thing that I started doing when I was thinking about money was how to kind of keep track of everything that I'm spending, especially now we have cards, credit cards, debit cards, so we're just swiping. So do you have any good tips or tricks for people to kind of be aware of what they're spending their money on?
The best way I do it, and I think this will be probably like the headline I probably reference multiple times, is the best way I like got good at budgeting, like knowing where to put my money and stuff like that, was like gamifying it. Just make it like a game in your head. Make it more fun. Don't make it like God, this is something I don't want to approach and like it's too big. Like make it small pieces to understand, and then like slowly but surely the whole picture comes together. And the first piece there, the piece that I was not willing to look into at all in the beginning, was like, wow, I don't want to know what I'm using this credit card on, piece by piece. And there's certainly apps that did help me along the way. You kind of can find different ways, either just looking at your bill, etc., to get an idea. But the big way that helped me actually was grouping things into known expenses, like all the bills that come through, and unknown, the things I can control on my credit card. And every 2 weeks or every month, as you needed to pay it, you kind of knew what that total number was, or you started to learn what it was. And I would just then start making a goal. Like, let's draw a line in the sand. I'll just make up a number, but let's say every 2 weeks I'm spending about $1,000 on this card. Let's try to beat that in the next 2 weeks. Let's try to beat that in the next 2 weeks after that. So a thing that helped me very early on is, one, you can open up multiple checking accounts. It doesn't cost any money in your own bank. And what I basically did was create 3 bank accounts. We've got checking 1. I'm paying all my bills out of that one, and that's where my money's coming in. Checking 2, that's where I'm paying my credit cards. Savings, just throw some money in savings because, just in case you spend too much one month. Let's just say, you've got $1,000 in each. And that's kind of back to that like line in the sand starting point. You can start to play that game from that perspective. The payday comes in, money goes into the bills section. I just got money. Wow, this is amazing. So happy. Immediately pay your bills and immediately pay your credit cards, so you know what's left over. And that's when you can start to see, like, was this a good, for me, 2 weeks, or if you only get paid monthly, a good month. And when it's a good month, all of a sudden the checking's above that line in the sand. I got 200 extra bucks. I did well. Let's throw that into savings, or let's, celebrate.
Spend it.
Or it becomes really obvious, this is lower than my line in the sand. I'm doing bad. And it kind of becomes a little bit more of a psychological, like, I'm got to push myself to spend a little less these next 2 weeks to try to get back to my osmosis or symbiotic, balance. You know what all your known expenses are. Your rent, your school loans, your car insurance, your phone bill. You're going to be able to tell, like, hey, I'm roughly making this much. Let me take out all that. How much do I kind of have left to spend in this is what goes on a credit card. This is how I live, my groceries, etc. Everyone should kind of have their own, what should this total be? Every 2 weeks, every month I need to pay it. Try to play that game. Like let me do better than around $2,000 or whatever a month.
We mentioned credit cards. There's a lot of, this is kind of, it's a funny thing, I think, with a lot of like Gen Zers, honestly, or young Gen Zs that I meet. They're like, oh, I don't have a credit card, or I only have the credit card that the bank at the career fair gave me when I was there, right? Like, and I still have that credit card. I want to urge on the side of over explaining than under explaining. So just talk about what is credit, why would you get a credit card versus a debit card, what is the purpose of that, and then what are the kind of just the dangers of, that kind of debt in general? What are the benefits of it as well?
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely just give a broad overview of in general and kind of what I would suggest doing, especially right out of college and stuff like that. So yeah, debit card, that's directly connected to your bank, your checking account in all likelihood. In the name debit, it's going to debit directly against it. Your money is gone the moment you use it, and you can spend it up until the amount of money you have into that account. Now, a credit card, they're basically giving you like a miniature loan, essentially, that's connected to the card. You have a credit limit with every card that you have. It's usually associated with your, salary in some instances, or like if you show, for more contract work, what have you made in the past year? And they'll give you an idea of, you can spend up till, at first right out of college, it's probably $1,000 or less. Then as you grow in your career, $5, $10, $20,000. Now you can put purchases on that to that limit, and you can incur interest likely at a very high rate if you pay only the minimum per month. I would immediately suggest, as a risk-adverse actuary, only put things on the credit card that you can pay off right away. There's no advantage to not paying it off. I would always suggest paying it off, and I would always suggest only using it when hey, that's a purchase I can pay. I don't have the cash on me right now, or I don't want to just like have this ripped out of my bank account right away, but in 2 weeks when this is due, I've got the money for it. But, that isn't taken out right away. You're kind of incurring a small loan on the card until you pay it off.
And why would you get a credit card? Why would I even want to take out one of these mini loans as opposed to just using the cash that I have?
First and foremost, probably just gives you a little bit more freedom for in the moment for a purchase. You might not have the cash directly on hand. It might be on a bank account, like a high yield savings account, where you need to move some cash over to be able to pay it in a week or so. So it's kind of just, the positives is a little bit more freedom. But in all honesty, like America is not based on the like, let me help the little guy every moment. Like these credit cards also exist because they're like, wow, I can't wait to make a lot of money off the people who don't pay off these cards, who are incurring high interest, etc. You're trying to kind of beat them at their own game. This was actually going to be part of my slice and spew at the end. There's ways to make a lot of money from credit card companies, and I will teach you at the end. But in essence, they're kind of not trying to help you. So you really need to be careful and make sure you're only using it when you can pay it off. And, keep that at a limit that, like, you're not going to be overspending and get caught into this trap. And if at the end of the day you don't trust yourself to be able to do that, at max I would suggest always getting one just to help your credit score. But, if you know yourself and you might overspend, call your bank and keep your credit limit low. There's no reason not to if you don't want to be spending over, the $1,000, $2,000 every month. Just don't give yourself that loan if that's something you don't trust yourself with.
So you just mentioned credit score. What is credit score? Why would you want it to be good?
Probably by definition is basically, what is your credit worthiness as an individual? From the bank's perspective, a higher credit score means you're more likely to pay that money back. They'll make money off the interest that you pay, and they basically have no risk on their end. If this person's an 800 credit score, has always paid their money back, etc. Now versus someone with a very low credit score, that person probably has missed payments in the past, or is a very unknown. They might not just really have interacted with credit in the past. So from the bank's perspective, They're like, I don't know if I want to take a risk on that person. And, at the end of the day, it's a business to them. They want to make money off their interest payments and getting that money back versus giving $10,000 out to someone with a low credit score and never getting that money again. So, in terms of just like first principles, it's just a score for the bank to judge, hey, how likely am I going to get this money back if I give it to this person?
I guess you can enlighten me or not, but like I know like 860 is like the max credit score, and then it goes all the way down to whatever. But I was drilled as a young age to be like, you get a credit card, you put Netflix on the credit card, and then you hide the credit card in a drawer, and you never look at it again, and you only ever pay off Netflix, and it's like $10 a month, stuff like that, that kind of
Yeah,
advice. I'm always wondering how much of that is like actually good advice, and how much of that is like if you don't eat your Brussels sprouts, your teeth will fall out, kind of thing, right? Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
what is the reality of the modern financial situation with stuff like that?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. One, that would work, but I think it's kind of to your point of like, yeah, but like, I can eat candy every once in a while. I don't have to just completely dodge candy and never eat candy ever in my entire
Yeah.
life so that my teeth can stay in there and intact and usable. Or that would work. I mean, the four big things that affect credit score: payment history. So that's kind of like the point you're calling out, like don't miss a payment.
Hmm.
Now, yes, if you have an excellent payment history and have never missed one, you're going to pretty quickly go up to 800, the 700s, and stay there. If you do miss one, they do kind of see that as like, oh, that's bad. So you'll drop a bit, but you certainly can recover. Other big pieces to the calculation: length of credit history. Kind of going back to my comparison earlier of there's both the person who has missed payments that the bank will look at as bad, but also the person who has like no history and is kind of this gray unknown to them, they're also going to be weary about, which will keep your credit score
Mm.
low. You kind of need to have
Hmm.
some credit history. Hey, I mean, even if you just have 10 years of paying off Netflix once a month forever, the bank will see that, like, man, well, Michael's been pretty good at paying off Netflix for 10 years, so let's
Yeah.
give him that money if he needs more. Now, debt to credit limit is another big one. I think one old wives' tale or whatever you want to call it that is a mistake is that keeps some unpaid credit. That is not something you should do. I think people have misunderstood the debt to credit limit aspect of it. Basically, see it as like how much do you currently have debt? How much do you have on the card versus how much the bank is willing to let you spend, that kind of credit limit. I think people have mistaken that as, oh, well, if I keep like $100 unpaid, but they're willing to give me 10,000, that shows a great debt to credit limit, and I'm going to have like a great credit score. It's better to just
Mm.
pay it off. The actual formula that goes into the bank is just if you have a lot of credit, you have a huge credit limit, and you normally only use but pay off like 1,000 a month, they'll see that as great. But always pay it off. If other banks were willing to lend you money, and now you have this like big pool of money you could tap if you wanted to, another bank is going to say, oh, okay, well, like Bank ABC thought this guy was good. So, you know what? Sure, you can have some more money. And it becomes kind of this snowball effect.
I just want to loop back to like why even like why is a credit score important? Why does it actually matter that you have a good credit score or even have a credit score at all?
Yeah, definitely. I think that goes back to what the credit score is used, the bank's decision to lend you money or not. Now, at some point in your life, you probably do want money to be lent to you, whether that's, purchasing a car or purchasing a house someday. And the better credit score you have, the more faith the bank has in you to be able to pay this off, the better terms they're going to give you. If you're buying a car for, and paying it off for 5 years, they're going to give you a lower interest rate because they have confidence you'll pay it back and they want to win you over versus another bank, versus another company lending that money to you. So they're willing to give you better terms to make sure you purchase through them.
So essentially, just having a good credit score is like just kind of the bank's way of being able to kind of like look at your history of being able to pay something back in like a number.
Yeah, in simple terms, if you have a good credit score, you're going to get better terms when you do borrow money, and the bank will actually borrow you the money. From the bank's perspective, they're just simply viewing us all kind of as numbers, and they're going to say, line in the sand, anyone above like 700, we'll call good, and we'll give them great terms. 600 to 700, we'll give them Yeah, we'll probably give them the money, but we'll give them bad terms because we want to make sure we get some money up front before or it gets maybe bad. And below 500, 600, I don't know where the line is. They might just say no from the beginning, and it would be tough to borrow money to get a car, to get a house, etc.
Another thing that you mentioned is a high yield online savings account. Could you maybe also explain what that is and why? Because I know when I was starting to save money, I just had a Wells Fargo account, I had a checking account, savings account, that was it. And all of my money was in this Wells Fargo savings account. And I was later told that that is probably not a smart idea and you'd want to go into this high yield online savings account. So could you just explain like why wouldn't that be smart? Why would someone want to open another like a high yield savings bank account over their normal savings bank account?
Sure. So yeah, the first thing I would say is you can always do better, but you're not really doing something bad. A lot of talk around high yield savings account and even investing to some degree. I don't want to scare people into thinking like you're making a mistake right now and you gotta fix it and scare them. But it's kind
You're
of
screwing up
a,
your
hey,
entire life.
yeah, you're screwing their future. But it's kind of a like, hey, if with a few honestly simple clicks, you can make your money kind of work more for you, why not do it? And the history there is, traditional banks, they don't want to give you a high interest rate to have your money stay with them. But high yield savings account, and it kind of started with a few online banks that wanted to win customers over, were willing to give a lot more higher interest rates if you were willing to give your money to them. And it kind of became more of a trend again to offer these higher interest rates. Now, the counterbalance as to like, why wouldn't we just be doing that across the board is your money is tied in that account probably for a day or two versus like, if you went to the bank today, you could take that money out right away. But, a regular bank's probably going to offer you a tenth of a percent. You're never going to see any change in your account, but high yield savings accounts today are offering like 3 to 4%. If you have $1,000 in that account and you're doing nothing else, you're going to get $40 throughout the year. In a regular bank account, you're going to get like 4 cents. So
Yeah.
why not take the $40? You can sign up today, wire the money over. It's truly going to take you 20 minutes on a computer to do. And the only downside is the next time you want to touch that money, it'll probably take a day or two to get back to your regular account. My suggestion usually as to what money to place into these accounts, your emergency fund that you're not really going to be touching day to day, a lot of times shorter term goals. So like when I was coming closer to purchasing a house, I kept my down payment in the high yield savings account because I didn't want to have it in the market in case anything crashed. So let's just put it in that account, let it grow at 3-4%, and ended up making a couple more $1,000 over the year or two that I was saving for the house.
Great, great.
I want to touch on, one of the stories we hear a lot of the news recently is like, inflation's really high. The value of a dollar now is worth less than the value of a dollar next year. So there is this impotence. I think, a lot of people when they first start saving money, they're just putting money away in the hopes that that's all they have to do to have like a sound financial future. But at least I was led to believe as a kid that that was not really true. You have to be beating inflation. You have to be doing stuff with your money or else whatever. So I guess I want to ask you, how much of that do you think is true?
No, this is a great question. I think the biggest way people should look at money is what is the goal of this dollar? Now, some dollars you want to just use for security. Let's make a 1 to 3 month or 6 to 12 month emergency fund. Keep it in an account that I can access in a day or two. Even if it's not beating inflation necessarily by being in a high yield savings account, I feel secure that worst case, I can't get a job for a couple months or I get laid off, I have that money ready and available for me in the short term. It tackles short term worry. Now, I also have a lot of dollars that I don't think I need to touch in the short term. I'd want them for the long term. I'd want for that retirement. I want to accomplish feeling comfortable when I'm 65. And those dollars, you're 100% trying to beat inflation. You're trying to grow, but you're confident you're not going to touch them for those 40, 50 years. And
Hmm.
those are the dollars we want to put in the market. We want them to be tied to the S&P 500, a total market index fund. We want to put them in, a 401k if you have that available to you, or an IRA, your own self-directed retirement account where you'll invest in the market, let it grow, and get back to that point you highlighted earlier where it's going to grow, it's going to compound for the next 40 years, and you should be beating inflation as this grows with the market. So yeah, I think overall theory I'd say is everyone should be thinking about what is this dollar doing for me? What's its goal? Is it for long-term retirement? Is it for making me comfortable in the short term? Or is it for paying my bill tomorrow? Let me just keep that in the bank then, kind of as we talked about earlier. So putting those dollars as quickly as possible into their goals and into that bucket is what I would really highlight and really encourage people to do.
And so to make this into kind of an actionable step, once you've reached an equilibrium in your budget and you've got a surplus amount of cash that you're not actively needing to spend on rent and, necessary expenditures, and this is your quote unquote like saving money, you're basically saying figure out the delineation of that savings, whatever it is, $200 a week, $100 a week, $50 a week, whatever it is, figure out what portion of it is going to go to these different buckets. Oh, here's my
Yeah.
vacation fund. And those should be separate accounts, ideally, right? Like this is going to this brokerage account for this high yield savings account, and this is going for my savings account, and this is going for rent, and this is going for whatever, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, and I would actually say, granted, I'm sure other high yield savings accounts do this, but I'll throw in a plug for Ally Savings that I use that I find super helpful. They let you open up different. I think they literally call it like bucketing
Mm,
within the high yield savings account. They let you name it. I have it named as like this one's house fund, this one's travel, this
mm,
one's future car, and you can even pick like I want $100 a month to go to the car fund that I might need to buy a car in a couple years, this one to go to just emergency fund, etc. And it really helps you spell out like I know if I'm putting $100 to A, B, and C different funds that in a year or two, and they even like show you what this will look like in a year or two, how much money I'll have for that thing. So Ally I find super helpful for those short-term goals. And then otherwise, yes, starting a brokerage account, starting a IRA with Vanguard, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, wherever the big joke is whichever color you like more, green, blue, red, pick your favorite color, roll with it. And then that account is usually used more for the long-term goals. Personally, I like red, Vanguard, because my dad's worked for like 30 plus years. So bit of a bias, but they're all great.
Well, now that you bring up broker accounts and all of that, why don't we try and dive a little bit into that? I'll let Michael take it away.
Yeah, you mentioned 401ks. I'm a Charles Schwab man myself.
Oh, okay. You like
I'm
blue.
a
Got it.
blue. I like blue.
Blue.
What can I say? I want to ask, we mentioned retirement, we touched on retirement, but I do think, and maybe this is where the fart joke noise comes in so people's eyes don't glaze over when we're talking about retirement, but I think when you mention traditional IRA or Roth IRA or 401k or pension, these can seem like very loaded words that people just have no clue what you're talking about. They also can seem obnoxiously boring to a young person who is like, that's future me. That's 50 years from now, me problem to deal with and not immediate problem to deal with. I guess I just want to dive just a little bit into, we don't have to go super deep into it, but what are these different types of traditional retirement accounts? What does it mean to max out your 401k? Why are they important? And how should somebody think about them?
Just to reiterate for people, since we are usually a contract freelance world, companies, we don't have a 401k.
A matching
We don't have
401k,
a
yeah.
matching 401k. It is going into the pension plan, but this is something that people will have to do on their own. So, challenge for you, Matt. Let's see if you can describe all of these in one or two sentences.
Perfect. Yeah, so we'll start with pension plan. Pension plans were super popular when like all of our grandparents were working. And it was a plan where you actually weren't really saving the money. They were either defining exactly what they would give to you, or they had kind of their own investment bucket. And depending on how well that did, they were going to pay you out from it.
When you say they, you mean
The
The
employer.
employer, right?
the employer? Okay, okay.
So traditionally, it would be non-freelance. It would just be me working for Cigna and Cigna saying, "Hey, as long as you work here for 10 years, we'll just start paying you money when you retire." Now, for you guys, I imagine it's connected to potentially like your union or something like that, or is it a employer that has the pension plan?
Yeah, we have there's a pension plan for all of the entertainment industry. It's called the MPATF, something like that. And we pay into it on our paycheck. On a union paycheck, you can see they're deducting money from our paycheck and it gets paid into MPATF. And then we get a letter
Mm,
every year that tells us how much money we've paid into our pension and if we were to retire right now, how much it would pay us out. But I don't think you can claim it until you're after a certain age.
Yeah, I
gotcha.
think you need to be part of it for a certain amount of time at least. Yeah.
I get a letter in the mail every year that's like, if you retired today, you would receive $75 a month or $100 a month until you died, something like that.
And you're like, heck yeah.
Yeah, I'm like,
Time to
hell yeah.
retire. I can live off that $75.
Yeah.
I'm like
Whatever it is. I don't know what it
groceries.
is, but
Groceries, let's go.
it's something like that.
Yeah, that's interesting. So that seems like it's more a good, almost similar to how Social Security works, but kind of trying to hold the hand a little bit to be like, we need to put something aside for you, even if it's not a lot, to hopefully help you in the future. But the tough part about pension plans is that you're not really in control of them. They're in control of that pool of money. They'll be in control of how much actually gets put to you guys, depending on how it works in 40 years. Worst case scenario, it's not even there. And that's where these other accounts come in. With a lot of salaried work, you have an option for a 401k. You can only have that account through your employer, but it's self-directed by you. So you put money into it. Sometimes it's matched by your employer as well. Would always suggest, if you do have a match, to always invest at least up to that match. And then once you have more money available to you, continue to invest more and put more into it. But more or less, it's an account that you can use to invest for retirement, and the investment growth is tax free when you start to take it out in retirement. And that's the big like win, the big this is why you should do it. If you were to invest in a brokerage account, all of your gains are going to be taxed. But if you invest rather, and it's strictly for retirement through this 401k, we won't tax your gains. So, highly suggest using it, whether you use that or an IRA, to save for retirement. Now, an IRA, from our point of view, honestly view it the exact same way. There's a lower contribution limit than the 401k. It's very self-directed. You don't need to have an employer that sponsors a 401k to open one up. You can go to Vanguard, Fidelity, Charles Schwab. Again, pick your favorite color. Open an IRA up and start putting money into it today. Now, a Roth IRA and even a Roth 401k, if you see the word Roth in it, it's basically that the dollars that were earned have already been taxed. So there's a couple of different taxes in play here. Now, Roth means the income portion of it has already been taxed. You might earn $100,000 in your job, but usually you only see 70K come down to you. Those dollars have already been taxed. Now, if you put that into a Roth IRA, and now we know that our gains aren't going to be taxed, all the money in the Roth IRA or Roth 401k that grows over these years will never be taxed. You can take it right out, you're good to go.
And I just want to add something, just to like bring this down a little bit in
Yeah, I'm
terms.
really getting into the weeds. Sorry.
That's
Appreciate it. This is
Oh,
good stuff.
I do appreciate it. I just want to give some numbers because I know that compound interest might be something that people don't quite understand. But when you're talking about gains, and correct me if I'm wrong, let's say that you put 70K into your Roth IRA or Roth 401k. Now, let's say over, again, I'm just making up a number, over 10 years, you have, from interest, you have gained $5,000 in that. Now you're saying that that $5,000 that you have gained, when you go to take that out for your retirement, that 5,000 will not be taxed. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so that's when you're talking about gains, you're talking about the amount of money that you're gaining based off of the interest rate that
Yeah.
is in these accounts.
For clarity to anybody listening, unless you are an editor or an assistant editor that has a contract that has a 401k plan, which are rare, I don't believe really any MPEG editors generally are under 401k plans. You normally have to be like at a company. Like if you're like at Nickelodeon Animation or something like that, and you're basically a salaried employee, and the union has just created a contract for the salaried employees there at Nickelodeon or whatever. For the most part, I don't believe any of us have 401k plans. I just did a Google search to double check that, and I believe that
Hmm.
is true. Our plan under the pension plan is a 401a plan, not a 401k plan. So that 401k does apply to a very small select of editors, but it's basically you have to be salaried at some type of company to even access that kind of plan.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point that you're bringing up, Michael, where some people, who are looking at this lens and not understanding what these different accounts are, everyone's going to reference a 401k because that's kind of the like known plan.
Yeah.
Opening up an IRA is going to work the exact same way and might just be the only option available to a lot of people in this space.
Hmm.
But opening that up, investing money for retirement in that space is the exact same thing everybody is doing with a 401k. So if you do that, you're on the right track, you're helping yourself for retirement. And also to really emphasize kind of that compounding interest, starting early idea that Leanne, you were just getting to, checking some numbers on my side. I've done this kind of calculation and prep for this convo. If you start investing in your IRA at age 25 and it stays even just at the level today, the 7,500 per year, when retiring at 65, you'd end up investing around 300K. That's a lot of money. Great to put that to the side. But if you have that in the market and it grows even just a reasonable, considering inflation, market growth at 6%, most people would argue the market grows at 10 plus percent. But you need to consider inflation there. That money is going to grow to $1.2 million. So you put in 300K, you get $1.2 million. That 900K difference, it's all gains in the market that now won't be taxed because you used the IRA versus a brokerage account. Why lose all that money?
I want to emphasize though, this is a Roth IRA, correct? So could you also give us just a quick explanation of what a
Sure.
traditional, what the difference is? Because I did not know the difference either.
So yeah, this would be a Roth IRA. This would also be an IRA though, because in
Okay.
both worlds, the gains aren't taxed. The only thing that is different when it's non-Roth is that these dollars didn't get originally taxed when you earned them, and they just directly went into the account. So those federal
Mm,
taxes, state taxes that would have applied to these dollars would need to get taken out. It's a little bit more complicated with an IRA because the dollars you're putting in likely were taxed and now you're almost untaxing them and you're able to take in the current year a kind of like tax deduction for those dollars, but later when you would take them out at retirement there would be some taxing connected to the income, like the federal original state taxes rather than the gains. Now in regards to the IRA, the only difference why you would do one versus the other is the government has created an income limit as to when you can no longer use a Roth IRA. It's around like 150K a year. It might change going into 2026. But if you're below 150K, I would highly suggest using a Roth IRA. If you're really into this stuff and want to research it, when you're above 150K, you need to open up an IRA, but you can do this thing called a backdoor Roth IRA where you just end up putting the dollars right into the Roth IRA and you don't even have to care about the whole tax deductible future taxing that I just described. I won't get into the weeds in that because that's going to be really complicated. But if you're really interested in this stuff, it's
this
actually pretty easy to do.
is why we encourage everybody to also still
Yeah.
look into all this.
Go do, and if you find anything interesting, which you should find, whenever you're inevitably having a panic attack about it, I'm sure there's a YouTube guru that's got some finance video about a backdoor IRA that they could tell you about.
Yes, yes.
But yes, I mean, the big kind of takeaway from using an IRA and especially getting those dollars into a Roth IRA is basically that dollar you're seeing will never get taxed again. And when invested in the market, should have great growth potential in the long term.
I want to pivot this conversation then to investing in the market. I'm not asking for your stock picks of the year, but I do want to talk a little bit about what that means to invest in the market. When we talk about like the growth of the market and that like you want to be invested in the overall growth of the market, I'm a very conservative, very safe person when it comes to my finances and investing and stuff like that. So I'm always like, what is the most diversified, what is the most safe thing? But these are a lot of buzzwords that I would like you to explain in your words and how you think about safe investing or more risk investing, whatever that means for you, especially with regards to stuff like an IRA. What does that mean for somebody who has to do this for the first time? And maybe they're staring down the barrel of this gun, going, "What stocks do I pick?" Right?
Yeah, like what does any of this mean?
Exactly.
Yeah, starting kind of minute or less explanation of the ideas. Buying a stock is basically buying a piece of a company, a piece of a publicly traded company, which is going to be any of the big companies, Disney, Walmart, a lot of the insurance companies, stuff like that. And as you highlighted, that can be risky. That's a lot of research to understand how a company is going to do in the future. And are they going to go up? Are they going to get down? It's going to be really stressful. How do I even spread it between different sectors and stuff like that? And what was created to kind of help solve that were these ideas of total market index funds, where very large brokerage companies more or less created a basket of, let's go with like the S&P 500 index fund. The 500 biggest companies in America that are traded, they put them all into a single basket, labeled it S&P 500, and they said, hey, do you want to just like buy a piece of this? And that can simplify the idea. I don't need to think about how each individual company is doing. History tells us that this market grows as a whole. What if I just put my dollars towards that, set it and forget it? That idea's continued to grow, where they've made total market index funds that basically just map to the market. So we're not buying just one individual stock. We're going to a large brokerage company, the ones we've mentioned before, like Vanguard, Charles Schwab, Fidelity, and buying a little piece of the whole market itself rather than a piece of Nvidia and really hoping it keeps growing. Now, the names are going to be confusing. I mean, like the one I invest in is called like VT Sachs. I don't know what that means. That can be intimidating, but it's some weird acronym that Vanguard puts together. But it stands for the Total Market Index Fund, I believe, and
Mhm.
that's just another Google away. If you research what's a good total market index fund to research in, when you have your dollars in this IRA, you can look up the exact same fund and put your dollars towards it. But an even simpler version is they've made similar funds that are targeted for retirement. And they just literally call
Mm.
them 2060 retirement fund. I believe that lines up with how old I am. I can't do that math at the top of my head. But that one is that one is a mix.
Meant for people retiring
Yes, meant for people
Mhm.
retiring in 2060.
in
And you can
2060.
find to, 2065, 2055. These options will be available where they're doing the hard, tough calculations on their end of how
Hmm.
should these dollars be allocated to stocks in the market, but also how should they be allocated to bonds and safer investments. And as those dollars stay in I'll keep going with my own example, the 2060 retirement fund, as I get older and those dollars need to be in safer assets like bonds, they're doing it for me. I just need to keep throwing money into my 2060 retirement index fund and it'll grow safely until I retire at 2060, hopefully earlier.
So I don't want to beat anyone's head over it, but when we say like this is conservative investing, we mean that in the sense of like if I go and buy Apple, we may all think of Apple as this great company that could exist, but maybe there's some scandal and we find out that they're laundering their money on the books or something, and Apple collapses to $0 a share, at which point I've lost all of my money. Versus if I own one of these big funds that have 500 companies, even if Apple goes to zero, well, I own 499 other companies. So
Exactly.
my losses are being subsidized by the fact that I have so many other things.
Yeah, you're basically just spreading your risk to the market of America. And
Yeah.
history tells us since kind of like the onset of the market that this has continued to grow on average, not every year, but on average about 10%. So as you're forward looking these 40 years until retirement, when we're in our 20s and early 30s and stuff, you'll continue to just see that growth. Why put it all in Apple or Nvidia, etc., when you can just bet on the market at large and just set it and forget it?
This is good. We got a good, robust idea of what savings looks like for a freelancer and a young person. Leanne and I both have some specific editing freelancer finance questions that are maybe a little more unique to our business that we'd kind of like to ask.
And if you
So
can't
Yeah.
answer them,
we'll
if
skip
you
it.
if you
We'll
can't
cut it
answer
out.
them, then
Yeah.
we'll be like, "Wow, Matt doesn't know anything." That's
Yeah, no
actually
reason
really
no reason to give a
stupid.
bad answer.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
already
yeah.
know I'm stupid.
No, Matt.
I guess we should probably start with one of the things that we have to financially plan for that maybe other industries don't have to financially plan for is long periods of unemployment. One of the great things about editing contracts is like they actually pay pretty well, but the trade-off of that is the rule of thumb when I was in college, I think it's probably changed a little bit, but you plan to work 9 out of the 12 months of the year. So you imagine that you have to stretch 9 months of salary over 12 months. It's changed a little bit in recent years. I think nowadays, when I talk to people, most people's rule of thumb is like 6 months. So I guess, like, what is your take on that? What is your thought process about how people should be thinking about the fact that in our business we have these very long stretches of unemployment? In general, what would be your advice for a group of people like us? We get high pay for 9 months out of the year and then zero pay for the other three.
Yeah, I think it goes back to kind of the budgeting we talked about earlier, like really understanding what are our known expenses and what are our goal from the day-to-day expenses. What does that look like in totality? And what would that look like throughout the whole year? Try to operationalize to it the monthly cost and understand, let's say back to the 6 months. What would be my expenses for the 6 months I'm potentially not working for? And almost add that in as part of your budget and money that I'm saving and sending to my high yield savings account. Back to Ally Savings and the different bucketing you can create. You could create the 6 months off bucket. I agree with you. I think I'd put that in a high yield savings account and make that part of my budget that I need to put X amount of dollars aside to create this fund for when I'm off. Most people call it an emergency fund. I think, the standard for a lot of salary workers, the standard is create kind of 3 to 6 month emergency fund just in case you were to lose your job, and you'd be able to use this fund to pay for all of your expenses, your rent, your bills, etc., for the 3 to 6 months it might take to get another job. But I think I would highly encourage people more in, contract work, etc., to make that a little higher. Shoot for 6 to 9 months, maybe 6 to 12 months, both for using this fund to cover, my car just broke down and I need to pay for that, but also, hey, I know there's going to be about 3 months, 3 to 6 months that I'm not working. So let me use this fund and feel comfortable that I know that'll cover me during my time off. So yeah, I think I would take the time to understand your expenses, your known expenses you have to pay, extrapolate that out for the 6 months, and make that kind of an item that you're saving for. If they know expenses are $3,000 a month, they know they might not be working for 6 months. That's $18,000. That
Yeah.
means I need to have 18,000 in its own little bucket to be able to pull from when they're off.
I think, and I think everybody, especially in editing, eventually finds a rhythm that they're comfortable with. But like when I first was like saving and getting started in the industry, I remember like my first big dry spell, I didn't work for like 6 months, something like that. But I had been working so nonstop from when I left college to then that I had been taking all of my money. I had it regularly buying, I don't know, VOO or something like that. It was, the Vanguard S&P 500 ETF or whatever. And then when I was unemployed, I needed to pay my rent. So I had to regularly start selling, these stocks to just pay my rent. And
Yeah.
that felt so awful. Now I put everything in a high yield savings account and I plan for 12 months of unemployment. So I just punt everything into there. But in principle, I don't feel like I'm selling my investments in my portfolio and my long-term horizon financial goals in order to meet the short needs of rent or whatever.
And I think you're highlighting something really important, kind of that like psychological aspect, which is why I think it's very helpful to get through that psychological piece when from the start you've put that dollar into the bucket for the job it's going to be used for.
Yeah.
It's not this giant pile of savings that you're like, wait, I'm using it now because I don't have a job, but what if I did need it for something else? Or as you highlighted, it was all in VU and you were like, no, but this was supposed to be for retirement. If you've already set aside your 6 month fund and like, hey, that was you, that this is supposed to be used for this, so I feel comfortable doing that. And once you hit that 6 month, then you throw it for something different. It's a lot more psychologically approachable to start doing that.
But you know what Matt does know? He does know health insurance.
Ah,
So that is something I wanted to
yes.
ask
Health
about, which
insurance, here we
is
go.
this is also a weird byproduct of the way that our businesses run with these long periods of unemployment. I've heard more talk in the editing community about HSAs.
Yep, I was hoping we'd talk about HSAs.
That's what I wanted to ask about.
That was like waiting for it. That's like, when are we going to get to HSAs? Come
I
on,
was going
let's
to bring up
go.
HSAs, yeah, independently.
You know, you're on your parents' health insurance until you're 26, but after 26, you have to be on your own. If you're a PA, you don't get covered by healthcare. You know, film companies don't offer you a healthcare plan if you're a PA. So they may need to get their own plan. They may need to run their own HSA. My broader question is, what is an HSA? Why would it might be helpful to our kind of class of people who have this kind of weird situation with the healthcare and their employer? And how could it be helpful to be thinking about it for somebody who thinks that might be the right option for them, as opposed to, you know, getting a healthcare plan off the market?
So yeah, and HSA stands for Health Savings Account. One, this helps people for the here and now if they think they might have high health expenditures, monthly or paycheck to paycheck, be putting money into this savings account. Now, a big plus to the savings account is the dollars that go in, these dollars that you earned, don't get taxed. So you've already kind of received this 20 to 30% increased premium on your dollar that you otherwise would have for the dollar that you'd spend if you went to the hospital or physician, etc. today. Now it's little kind of similar to the retirement accounts, and you can only use those in retirement. These dollars you can only use when it falls under kind of a health umbrella. You know, you're going to pay for claims, etc. So I think just like the real good short term positive is, hey, these dollars aren't going to get taxed, and I would have spent this already because I needed to go get my vaccine or whatever. Now, the big positive, and why a lot of people probably suggest them and they've gotten significantly more popular, is you can use them also as a retirement account and you can invest the dollars. So they're kind of like triple tax advantage to a degree because, one, on your health expenditures, you can grow these dollars and those gains won't get taxed. And if you end up going into retirement and you didn't spend them on your health expenditures, they just turn into essentially a IRA account. And that ends up not being taxed because it didn't get taxed in the beginning. It's not getting taxed when you end up using it, and the growth in it didn't end up getting taxed. So it's kind of a like slightly better retirement in comparison to an IRA or 401k. And also, best case scenario, you just use it on your health expenditures in retirement. And also, interesting thing that you can use with them is you can put money in it, put it into the market, let it grow. At this point, for the audience, just picture it like it's the IRA. You're putting money in, it's growing for 40 years, etc. You know, you just use your regular dollars to be paying for health expenditures along the way. If you save all those receipts, or like, you know, kind of create a timeline, just save it on your computer, put it in a folder somewhere, whenever you want, you can then go to the health savings account, show all the receipts, and directly deduct all that money from the account, and it just goes into your bank account. So
Oh,
40
wow.
years
Wow.
worth of health expenditures at age 60, 65, whenever you want to do it, you can just go and say, hey, actually, I did spend all this money on health costs. Now, why would you wait all that time? Because you're letting this huge pot of money grow in the market. And then you're going at the end and just saying, hey, actually, I did spend like $50,000 on health stuff over the last 40 years. Can I just have that now? And they'll go, yeah, okay, here, have it.
Wow.
Wow.
So it kind of becomes this very useful account that, again, you kind of don't have to do much for, like the IRA, that has this kind of like added plus of being able to use it on health expenditures.
And is this, I don't know much about this. Is this a replacement for health insurance, or is this something that would work best alongside health insurance to pay stuff like copays and
Yeah,
medication and stuff like that?
it goes along with them. So you actually can't have an HSA unless you have a high deductible health plan, is what they call it.
Oh,
But
okay, I
that's what
see.
it's supposed to help out with. You know, a high deductible health plan is going to have a lot of dollars early on that the member, customer, etc. is paying for. So if you don't have a lot of liquidity at that time, you can just use the spending account right now. Use it to pay your copay, use it to pay your deductible, etc., and feel comfortable that you're not taking on this huge cost when you go to the doctor. And maybe you have to have like a small operation or something like that. But yet, if you end up going through that whole year, you've been putting money into your health savings account and you ended up not taking on a big cost that year, great. It's in the market, it's growing. Maybe you have to use it later in the next couple of years, etc. Or you just continue to let it grow. and it kind of becomes another retirement nest egg for you.
Hmm. I think I have one last question. I think Leanne has one last question, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I'll go first because I think Leanne's is more of a good button for the end. I mentioned to you like I'm somebody who is fairly conservative when it comes to investing, but I'm also somebody who sees the value in freelancing in terms of spending money, which is kind of a weird thing. But like sometimes you need to spend money as a freelancer in order to give yourself good tools in the future, a new computer,
Hmm.
being able to regularly spend money on cocktails for a networking event, stuff like that. There is some level of like these fluffy expenses actually being very integral to being able to establish a healthy career.
Yeah, short-term cost, long-term gain.
Yeah, I'm just interested what you think about that. Oftentimes on our shows, we are being provided equipment, but like if you don't own your own editing setup yourself at home, like you're really doing yourself a disservice. Sometimes you got to buy a website, stuff like that. I don't know. I'm just curious in general, your advice for a person thinking about what it means to be investing in their career versus investing in their future, like in their savings. And then I guess how do you look at these kind of frivolous expenses, but come to terms with the fact that sometimes they are necessary? How do you find that balance?
Yeah, I think it's important too when you are budgeting, kind of to a degree, rank stacking your needs. Your top need should be rent. You gotta live somewhere. And there's a lot of bills that are really important. So you use your money at first to pay those things off. As you get down your budget and you see how much money you have left during this period when you have your job and you're getting paid, biweekly, monthly, etc. You continue to rank stack your goals. And I imagine as you get down that list, you start getting to these items. I want to upgrade my computer setup. I want to upgrade my editing software, etc. And I think it's just about being smart, being a little bit more forward looking about like what's this year looking like? Do I have some more jobs set up so I could invest more now to get maybe the highest end, or maybe the mid end would work and it would achieve my goals. But if you see the long term gain coming from this investment, I'd be all for it. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing that while you're the one spending the money, and that might scare you a little bit. I think it goes back to the bucketing system we discussed. If when you're creating your budget, you in the here and now, if you don't need the computer right now, started putting some money aside for job items for this year, and it's $100 or $200 a month. When it comes to that point of needing the latest software, needing needing to upgrade your computer, over 6 months, you've put aside like $1,000. I think the overall theme I'd want to focus on is just making sure you know where your money is going and where it's accomplishing its goals so that you aren't afraid to spend that money today or in the future when you do need to, upgrade software, invest in yourself to get the job, etc.
I want this to dovetail into one more little question I have, which is, a lot of the people that listen to our show are young people, and the number one thing that they think about in terms of long-term savings for are cars and houses. I know trying to get a mortgage as a young person is becoming an exceedingly more and more difficult task, but I am just curious, as part of that bucketing, is there a percentage recommend? Is there an age you think somebody should be trying to buy their first home? Is there anything that you look at as like this is a good rule of thumb?
Hmm. I'd say general rules of thumb. So I think I want to take a step back to make this more than just like for housing and stuff like that. I think a general rule of thumb for retirement, because we didn't really, we touched on retirement, but we didn't touch on like
You're
a
right.
general
We didn't
rule of
say
thumb.
numbers.
Starting out, I think trying to shoot for 15% of what you expect to earn that year, maybe like a minimum 10% is a really good starting goal. Working towards maxing out that IRA is also a great goal, but there's studies done that, if you started at 15% early on in your career, you end up basically having your salary throughout your working lifetime in retirement. So you would just smoothly move in from working into retirement, and you have that same amount of yearly dollars ready for you. So maybe try to shoot for that number from the beginning. If you get used to putting that amount of money aside, it just stays comfortable. You kind of know the money that you have available to you. In regards to housing and cars, I'd say overall goal with cars is try to put down as much as you can. Cars are a depreciating asset. The moment the car is off the lot is the moment it's already lost a lot of money in value. So if you can continue to drive your car for as long as you can and it's still safe, I'd say keep putting money to the side to buy that next car. And I definitely highly suggest 20% down minimum for a car. But the more you can put down, the more you could just buy the whole thing. Is honestly the most financially savvy opinion.
Can I just ask real quick? I was told something else about the car. I was always told that you would want more of a monthly payment as opposed to like a cheaper monthly payment. You'd want like a higher monthly payment and to put down like, whatever you're comfortable with. But the idea, I guess, behind that is like, okay, you have more money in your bank account that can earn interest every
I see where you're
month
going.
as opposed to that going towards the car. Like let's say you put 50,000 towards the car. Now you're out that 50,000. Whereas like if you put 20,000 towards the car, you have an extra 30 in your bank account that will gain more interest over the month and thus help with your monthly payments. So I just wanted to know what your insight is on that and if that sounds reasonable or what the kind of downfall of that could be.
Yeah, that was actually going to be my last rule of thumb, but it
Okay.
perfect segue to it. Yeah, there's kind of the idea of overpaying on debt or paying the minimum based off the interest rate. So I think you're highlighting a situation. It's maybe when you bought your car where interest rates were very low, like right around 2020, 2021. Interest rates were comically low as the Fed was trying to keep us from a total crash during the pandemic. They made money very easy to borrow. And when that interest rate on your debt is very, very low, that means you're not really incurring more interest that you owe to the bank month to month. And you actually would gain more money putting that money instead of overpaying the car loan towards keeping it in the market. That usually on average gets around 8 to 10%. So, 8 to 10% is a lot higher than 3%. So why not just pay the minimum there, keep everything else in the market?
I see.
Now, today, interest rates are higher. So that rule of thumb is no longer really applicable as, house I got 6 months ago, our interest rate is like 6.6%. That's pretty
Ooh.
high, a lot higher than that 3% that, I referenced earlier. And that's a lot closer to the dollars that you could get in the market. In the long term, you'll likely get in the market, but you might not get in the market this year.
I
So
see.
that's when it becomes kind of a trade-off of I can definitely get 6.6% by paying more off on my mortgage versus putting that money in the market. And that becomes kind of the trade-off. The general rule of thumb is right around that range of like if your debt is the 5 to 7%, it's whatever you're more comfortable with. It's kind of a little bit more of the roll of the die of investing more will make you more money versus just paying off your debt. And a lot more people are comfortable overpaying the debt then and just getting rid of that 5 to 7% interest rate. So I'd say here and now, especially with a car, I'd probably pay more to not take on that higher interest rate. You end up getting like a great deal at the lot and they give you a really low APR, especially if you have a good credit score. There are like really big deals to try to get you to buy a Hyundai versus a Toyota, then go for it. Go back to that, like, hey, my interest rate's really low. I might as well put this money in the market instead. But with that, once the interest rate is higher on your debt, better to pay that off, or at least it's a kind of even trade.
I'm with you, Matt. I'm a used car freak. Buy them in cash. Buy it from somebody on Facebook Marketplace for $7,000 and drive it
Oh yeah,
until it's literally
highly
To the
you
suggest
can
ground.
that.
see the concrete. That's how
Yeah.
I think about cars.
Yes, so we can circle back to a house.
Yes,
Sure.
housing.
Go ahead to the beautiful market that is the housing
I
market
know the
these
housing
days.
market is so. I mean, I follow this very closely. The housing market is just so fucked right now. But if we ignore the extenuating circumstances that is the insane current housing market, if when you think about young people, right, and people who are trying to get into their first home, I guess what do you see as just like good ideas, bad ideas, pitfalls people are falling into, things people aren't doing enough of?
Yeah, definitely a much more difficult time right now looking at the housing market and stuff like that. Some general rules of thumb. The age-old rule of thumb was 20% down, a race's PMI and stuff like that. I think that's less relevant now as it can be better to get into the house earlier on, especially as like the worth of the house continues to grow. You take on PMI, But if you have decent credit score, PMI is actually fairly low. So I wouldn't see that as like a scary thing and that you need to get
What
to
is
that.
PMI? Is that the insurance? Is that like the fee you pay for
Yeah.
paying less than 20%? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was going to say private mortgage insurance. And it's essentially, yes, the assurance against the fact that you haven't put down, what they view as a high enough amount on the house so that you're kind of risking that you could go underwater. But
Gotcha.
as long as you're above 5 to 10% of the down payment, that's very unlikely to happen.
So that's just a fee they're tacking onto your mortgage payment.
Yeah, essentially. And once you get to 20%, you don't have to pay it anymore.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I mean, my suggestion would be being in that 5 to 10% plus range of a down payment for a house. I think the minimum is like 3.5 when you get an FHA loan. Honestly, the real thing that I'd suggest for going into a house is don't max out what the bank is willing to loan you. The bank is willing to loan you the amount of money that would basically eat up like every single dollar you earn outside of like what you need to like live and breathe and eat. So you don't want to max out to that dollar. There's a lot of calculators online. They even include them in Zillow, Redfin, very popular sites for looking for houses to let you know what that mortgage payment would be. So only shoot for a house that when you have your down payment ready or you know what that expectation would be, you're able to take on that mortgage. Another big thing I would highlight with house versus renting is there's some saying that your rent is the highest you'll ever pay. Mortgage, that's the lowest you'll ever pay. You're always going to have to pay your mortgage, and you might have to take on, your water heater breaking, appliances breaking and paying that month. So you really want to consider kind of an extra couple $100 or whatever you're comfortable with, maybe $1,000 buffer above your mortgage that you would be able to pay in case some of these big costly items occur that month or first couple months that you're living in your house. So yeah, always go for a mortgage you're comfortable with. I would shoot for at least 5 to 10% down payment, and always remember that the mortgage is going to be the lowest you pay that month for your house. You need to have room to be able to pay for everything else.
When you say like an affordable mortgage that they can afford, I was always told like 30% of your income in a month should be going towards your mortgage. Do you still think that's a good rule of thumb? Like if you can't afford 30% of that going towards your mortgage, that's not the right house for you. Like that's kind of what I was always
Yeah,
taught.
it's a good highlight to give that rule of thumb. Yeah, I think that goes in line with kind of the budgeting piece I was talking to. Like the bank is willing to lend you money well past that 30%. So you need to make sure it's something that you're comfortable with. 30% is a great rule. I think we're moving into a world where
That's higher.
30, yeah, it can be a little bit higher. And I think it gets back to knowing your own situation. I would highly suggest even creating a bit more of a buffer of a couple $100 to $1,000 a month that you're still at least saving or even saving specifically for the house. And whatever that number ends up being, that I think is what you should be comfortable for. But 30% is a good, ballpark of what that should be around.
Last question I have for you. What are some common financial mistakes that you might see people, creative people, contractors, it doesn't necessarily need to be our industry, but people who are not on a salary job?
The jump from being a PA to being an assistant editor, just for your knowledge, is like it's like so drastic a life adjustment. You literally go from making $18 an hour as a PA one day to making like $60+ an hour as an assistant editor in an afternoon. It happens so fast that the thing that I see is I see a lot of people who become assistant editors and they immediately buy cars they can't afford, they get an apartment they can't afford, and they do things that like they're assuming that they're going to be making $60 an hour every hour until the day that they die, and they're not factoring in this like being unemployed, whatever. But I'm just curious what you hear in general from freelancers and stuff that you see.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I would say is, especially as you make that salary growth, they lived life on the $18 before they had the 60. Making sure that lifestyle creep doesn't take over is a big thing that you need to kind of battle against. And I think it gets back to that budgeting and rank stacking what's important and making sure that you kind of have these goals and intention for your money before you just start using it blindly, because now all of a sudden a lot more is coming through the door. So one, sticking to like, let's stay in the here and now. Let's just continue to use the numbers you highlighted. I survived on $18, so let's live in that life continually for the next couple of months, even as more money's coming in. And let's get down that kind of financial to-do list to make sure my future looks good. So let's build out that 1 to 3 month emergency fund first, just in case I lose this job. Let's make sure I've got money to live for a couple months so I can get another job. Then let's pay off high interest debt. I think a big issue I do see, especially when you're young and all of a sudden you're giving this higher credit limit, you're making more money, so the banks are willing to loan you money. You rank up that credit card debt by going out. You take on the car loans you're highlighting. You live in a apartment that's
You're
way
living
too
the high
expensive.
life. You're
You
living the
live the
rich
high
high
life.
life.
If
Like, oh my
if
god,
any
I'm
high
making
life,
60. Let's go.
Which is easy to do in Los Angeles. I
It
mean, it's
is. It
easy.
is
It's
yeah,
easy
easy.
to compete with the Joneses in Los Angeles and be like, oh, like so and so is now driving a really nice car. Like, do I need to be driving a really nice car? So and so is living in West Hollywood in this really nice apartment, and I should I be living in West Hollywood in this really nice apartment, right? Like that. It's easy to be doing that kind of thing, especially in LA.
yeah, I totally agree. And a part of it's a mindset, and I think that is the before having the fun, kind of have that delayed gratification to help your long-term goals, which is kind of accomplishing that to-do list that we talked about. Make sure your emergency fund's in a good spot, make sure you know where your money is actually going and what is a definite expense for you, paying off that high interest debt and stuff like that, making sure everything is in its right spot and you see how much money is left over, then start having your fun. I'm not going to say don't live in the nice apartment. If you can afford it, definitely go for it. But it'll be pretty obvious if you can afford it after you've paid all your expenses, put money aside for your emergency fund, maxed out your IRA, and are confident in your retirement future, and you see how much money is left over at the end. Now, if a lot is left over, go get that car. If not a lot is left over, you can't get that car.
Yeah. Yeah.
Live life from that lens.
Are there any other mistakes that you see people doing, or maybe because maybe there's some people who don't know that they're making the mistakes and like, oh, this actually I should probably be kind of like wary of this.
I think cars and credit cards that Michael highlighted are the biggest I see. And
Okay,
particularly too, sometimes taking on a lease. I don't think a lease is a bad thing whatsoever.
at least in terms of the car.
Yeah, like a
Okay,
car lease. I don't think a car lease is a bad decision, but it is more a decision you make when you know you have more free money to work with. If you are still younger and you need a car, you're still building out your savings, you're still figuring out your retirement situation, I would take the route that Michael and I highlighted earlier. Go find a used car. Go find a car that, gets you from A to B but doesn't have all the bells and whistles. So from the car perspective, don't let lifestyle creep take over and you go to the car lot and they say, "But you can afford this payment now," because it's not the payment, it's the car you're getting. And then with credit cards and stuff like that, yeah, they have extremely high interest rates, and the interest you should never pay. You should only use your credit card on something you can pay off at the end of the month. Otherwise, kind of back to the gamification, you're letting the bank win. So, only spend, only buy what you can afford and you can pay off.
I just want to touch on that because I think it's relevant to a lot of our listeners. How do you prioritize when you come to that buckets in terms of paying back long-term debt like student debt? Do I do the minimum payment? Do I go above and beyond? Like, am I really tackling the principal? Do you have any good thoughts about that in terms of like people who have an amount of student debt?
Yeah, I think it all comes down to the interest rate on the debt, kind of what we talked on earlier. Like credit cards are going to have the highest interest rate against them. It's probably going to be 20% plus. That's going to be racking up a lot of dollars month to month if you don't pay it off. So tackling that high interest debt, putting your extra money towards that in the short term is going to be the best thing you can do. Now, when it comes to longer term debt like student loans, that I would say always keep your finger on the pulse of when you could refinance that debt at a lower interest rate. And a lot of times you get that opportunity, not only just when interest rate goes down, but when the bank starts seeing you as a much more trustworthy individual.
As your credit score goes up?
Exactly. You've taken on this student loan debt when you were a much more unknown to the bank. You probably got given a higher interest rate because of that. So as you start to pay this off and you're a couple months, couple years into your career, you've been paying at least the minimum the whole time, look in to see what could you get this refinanced at, because a lot of banks too would be very willing to take you on to be able to get those interest dollars now in their pocket versus where it was going to before. And if you can get that interest rate low enough to those numbers that we talked about earlier, below 5%, then I'd highly encourage just pay the minimum and put the difference into the market. It's probably going to grow more in the long term in the market at that point. Month to month, you'll take on that 3-4% student loan debt, and it'll be paid off in the long term. If you're more comfortable putting more towards the student loan debt, highly encourage that too. That's when it's kind of that psychological game. Whatever you're more comfortable with, do what's best for you, but always keep your finger on the pulse of, hey, could I, in a half hour today, just go online, check out what like SoFi is offering me, and could I get this refinanced to a lower rate and pay a lower monthly fee for the same exact thing?
All right. I think we actually have one more final question, unless I just want to check with you, Michael, to see that
Yeah, I'm good.
You're good. You're good. All right, Matt. We're going to bring it back to film and editing here. What is your favorite movie?
Ooh, what's my favorite movie? I should have thought about this before. I knew I knew
You
it would
came
be
on a
coming.
film podcast.
Yeah,
I
no, I'm a
got you.
fool.
Surprise.
I was showing
Surprise.
the numbers. I didn't know. I didn't see the obvious. My favorite movie. Okay.
That's
A few
always a
come to
loaded
mind.
question. So if you want,
know,
if
it
you
is
want
such
to
a loaded
list,
question.
if you want to list a few, or if you want to list a director, if you want to list.
Make it something that everyone who is a pretentious film buff like Leanne and I will cringe at.
Oh,
God,
okay.
if you say Citizen Kane, I will throw my
Well,
laptop.
actually, sometimes it's called Xanadu, so I'll go with that. I don't know if you know this. I thought you went to film school, so.
Rosebud.
Rose,
Yeah.
yeah. Me and my buddies just called the movie Rosebud.
The Caners
But
know.
the Caners know. My immediate thought went to Jaws. I love Jaws. It's the
Great
best
Alright.
one. Great
film to
answer.
just watch anytime. Other movie, any of the Back to the Futures, because I've just watched them 1,000 times. Recently saw the Back to the Future, the musical as well. I
Yeah?
don't
Yeah.
know if I highly suggest it, but I suggest it. Anyone who is thinking about going should go. But anyone who
Yeah.
wasn't thinking about going, you are making the right decision by not going.
You have to think about your level of risk that you're comfortable with.
Yeah, exactly. I also just love Napoleon Dynamite. That movie's so sick. Yeah, you watch it as a kid and you're like, stupid humor. I love this. Then you watch it
Yeah.
later as an adult and you're like, this is actually art. Like, this is incredibly well done.
Yeah.
Should we go into our final segment?
Yeah.
Slice and spew.
Splice and spew.
Matt, I know I told you about this. You are the guest, so yes, we'll let you go first.
So to keep it a little finance related, if you've got everything in order and you feel confident with where finances are, my biggest suggestion would be to look into what credit card churning is. If you play the credit card game correctly, these companies are dying to give you money. They want to give you so much bonus money to spend on flights. I have not paid for a flight in 5 years because of this. And it's a very simple system. Essentially, because the banks are relying on the customers who will not eventually downgrade their card and they'll continue to pay their yearly fee. If you look into, I would go to, it's like the credit card guy. He's a great website for just giving you all the credit cards that you can steal money from. And it's not really stealing money. Much more less embellished version is essentially there are a lot of credit cards out there that want to tout themselves as these like high-end cards like Amex and Chase Sapphire Reserve and stuff like that. And they will give you a sign-on bonus that is worth like $1,000+ in airline credit if you spend, it's usually like $3,000 to $4,000 in a 3-month time frame, which if you put all your money towards it, that 3-month period, you should be able to pretty easily do. If you go out to dinner, tell everyone it's on me tonight, but Venmo me the money, and you just put your credit card down, they'll Venmo you. you'll be able to get your bonus. If you get your bonus, you're getting like $1,200 to spend on flights for however long that takes. And at the end of the year, you just got to call that credit card company up and go, hey, can I downgrade to the free version? They have to say yes. It's half the time. They'll even give you a retention bonus to be like, hey, if you're willing to stay and spend another $3,000 in the next 3 months, we'll give you 50,000 more points. And you can just go, okay, great. Because they want to keep you on as a customer. They want to keep you on for you to forget, for you to not downgrade and pay your $100 a year. A lot of them are not just $95 a year, which is like, you don't want to spend that money. But if you in the first year can get $1,000 worth of airline credit and all you did was pay $95 and you remember at the end of the year to go, hey, can I downgrade? That's $900 for free. And there's like so many credit cards that you can do this with. Again, this is not financial advice, and do not do this if you are not. Do not do this at all if you are not in complete control of your money.
It's like, yeah, you can't fuck it up, because if you fuck it up, you go financially destitute. But if you don't fuck it up, you never have to pay for a flight again. Is what I always hear. It's like no, it's great as long as you don't fuck it up, but don't fuck it up, and you'll be fine.
Don't forget about these credit cards that you have.
Yeah.
But you can never pay for flight again if you don't want to. But no, like more easy, approachable way. I'd look up the credit card guy is great. I'd go for like the $95 cards at first. They still have great bonuses. So start there, figure it out. Just remember at the end of the year to downgrade, and you don't got to pay for flights. It's awesome. You just have to be responsible with it.
All right, Michael, you want to go or you want me to go?
I can go. Mine is a splice and a spew, because it has to do with driving up to the Bay Area. I drive up to the Bay Area a lot. I'm in the Bay Area right now as we record this. There are two roads that you can take to the Bay Area. There's the 101 and there's the 5. And I like to designate this as the people who enjoy living versus the people who don't, because the Highway 5 is a nightmare. It's a straight line through the valleys and desert. It sucks. It's so boring. I want to die every time I do it. But everyone gives me so much shit because if you take the 5, it saves you like 45 minutes to an hour as opposed to taking the 101. Listen, people, you're already giving up the day. When you're driving from Los Angeles to the Bay Area or Bay Area to Los Angeles, the day's gone. It's gone. You're not doing anything else that day. You're not going to be productive at the end of the day. The day is wasted. Take the scenic route down the most beautiful coastline that America has to offer. Like, enjoy it. Stop for a cup of coffee. Eat an In-N-Out burger. Go smell the ocean. Go talk to a fisherman. I don't know. The 101 is amazing. San Luis Obispo is amazing. Solving. Go eat a Danish waffle. I don't give a shit. As opposed to Highway 5, where you literally have to drive past like cow prisons and like misery. So listen, I'm so sick of having this argument. The 101 is better. Yes, it takes an hour longer, but you get 3 hours of life enjoyment out of it versus you lose 3 years of your life when you drive on Highway 5. I'll die on this hill. So it's a splice for 101 and it's a spew for Highway 5. But when the high-speed rail inevitably opens up, I will never take any of those again because I love trains. And I like trains more than I like anything else. So I will gladly ride on a train. So Gavin Newsom, get to it. Give me my train. I want to ride my train from here to San Francisco.
All right. I am going to... It's kind of also a splice and spew at the same time. I am going to splice about the fact that I really miss hidden adult jokes in kid shows. I really miss... like literally cartoon, old Disney movies, all of that have these like hidden jokes that you wouldn't get until you're older, because it really makes you appreciate it when you're older, and you're like, oh my god, I get that now. One of the biggest references I'm gonna say, which I literally did not know until 4 years ago, and the splices that I appreciate these, the spew is that they don't do this anymore. There was a SpongeBob episode where Squidward is a ghost, or they think that he's a ghost. And SpongeBob and Patrick are carrying him on this like kind of throne thing. And they go here, and he goes too hot. And then they move it, and they go here, and he goes too wet. And then they go here, and he goes too loose Lautrec. Now, when I was younger, I thought that he said to lose the track, as in they went off the map. He literally, when they move his chair, there's a painting behind them of these fish and they look like that they're dancing. And basically, Toulouse-Lautrec is a painter who painted a painting of this
Toulouse.
yes.
Oh, it's Toulouse. Oh,
It's
that's
Toulouse,
so funny.
and
Toulouse. Oh, that's so funny.
and the painting, instead of fish, it's women. Like they're just like women who are kind of doing like a can picture, but they replace the women with swordfish to make it, and it does like a dun-dun-ts. But like when you were little, you would not. The only reason I knew that this was a joke is because I had the subtitles on, and I read on Paramount Plus that it said Toulouse. I was like, wait, hold on. What is this? And I looked it up and I was like, oh
Too
my
hot to
God, this is genius.
Toulouse-Lautrec.
Like these genius little things that I wish that they still did. I still will watch these shows and catch these little moments and laugh. Like it's great. I miss them. That's my little splice and spew. Well, thank you. I hope that you stuck with us for this episode of Sips and Clips. I know that it was a lot. I know it was kind of deep and dense, but I'm really hoping that you stuck with us. And I think this was very and can be beneficial for people as well. So thank you for listening. You can follow us on Instagram at Sips and Clips Pod. You can email us at sipsandclipspod@gmail.com. And just remember that oh my God, I almost messed it up. What was it? You keep on sipping
And we'll keep on clipping. You almost forget that.
I almost forgot that. I
That's
know.
part of the show.
Best part. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Sips and Clips is a podcast produced by Leanne McFalls and Michael Schusterman. Logo design by Mike Knoll. Production sound by Cassidy Leggin. Post-production sound by Zach Griffin. Follow us on Instagram at Sips and Clips Pod or email us at sipsandclipspod@gmail.com. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.